Newsfirst exclusive.
As the world trade and supply chain continues to evolve, maritime and logistics plays a vital role in shaping the global economy. And in Sri Lanka, here right in Colombo, the 7th edition, the Colombo International Maritime and Logistic Conference will be held. Hello there, and this is yet another Newsfirst exclusive. With me are here today two figures from the conference. It's Mr. Rohan Masakorala, welcome, and Mr. Sanjay Samarasinha. So I would like to ask both of you this question. In your own perspective, what is this conference? I would start with you.
Yeah, it's we've been having this since 2015. Actually, the idea came to me when I visited Singapore Maritime Week. They promote their destination, tell the world what Singapore offers. I thought, why not Sri Lanka? So in that sense, in 2014, we actually started the back office operations of this conference, Colombo International Maritime Conference at that time, and then we extended it to Colombo International Maritime and Logistics Conference. And so since then, we are trying to promote our destination, Sri Lanka, which is blessed by nature as one of the top locations in the world for maritime related activities, and beyond that into logistics. Of course, we have had our own problems as a country, so now we want to actually move away from that negative problems we have had. So we bring back this conference again and again to Sri Lanka once in 2 years and tell the world and our partners, our investors, that Colombo and Sri Lankan ports are one of the best for you to look at to invest and do business. And also we have a market up north in India that is evolving, so they will need a lot of logistics solutions. We have the capabilities, we have the talent. Only thing was our weak point probably was telling the world and marketing. So we thought this conference was launched 10 years ago, and it has earned a name around the world. So therefore we get foreign participants, speakers coming into Colombo. So we have done quite a good job over the last 10 years having this conference. We not only had it here, we had it in Mumbai, and we also had it in Dhaka, Bangladesh. So we are taking Sri Lanka to not only within Sri Lanka, but we want to take it to out there and talk about this part of the world. Sri Lanka leading the maritime activities in South Asia. So that's the overall picture of this conference.
I think Rohan touched on several key points when highlighting what the importance of this event is. For us as a company, Aramex, who I represent, we've believed in the potential of Sri Lanka and the place it plays in the logistic landscape in the world for quite some time. We are one of the oldest companies in Sri Lanka to have invested. So we think this is a great opportunity for Sri Lanka to showcase itself to the rest of the region and the world. And considering that 50 years ago also, and I think Rohan, you can attest to this, both Dubai, which is a key port in the world, and Singapore, which is a key port in the world now, learned from us 50 years ago. And for some reason, Sri Lanka went to sleep a little bit when it came to logistics. We focused predominantly on freight, sea to air movements. But logistics encompasses a lot more. It encompasses logistics in the sense of express, there's warehousing and supply chain. So we kind of focused on the age-old traditional freight, and we kind of forgot about the express, the e-commerce. That's where companies like us participating in these events, we want to showcase the possibility of us taking the next step. A little bit late, but it's never late, I'd say, in the business world. So we can take the next step, facilitate e-commerce in the region. This is a $100 billion industry if you take the last couple of years, and we are not getting any portion of it. So our intention of being here is to focus the spotlight on what's available in Sri Lanka, the talent, the capabilities, both as a country and the people, and kind of taking Sri Lanka to the place it should be at the top of that logistic landscape.
Yeah, Mr. Sanjay, I would like to ask you, what key challenges in the maritime and logistic industries are you focusing to discuss during this conference?
We'll be focusing on highlighting the existing barriers. Again, like I said, the understanding of what is logistics. Logistics is not only sea and air freight, it encompasses a lot more than that. So So one of our focuses will be breaking those barriers, showing the audience both at the event, and of course this is going to be telecast in a few other places. So making sure that everyone understands that there is so much more potential than what is traditionally tried and tested, and how to tap into that potential. So we've got our regional head coming down to Sri Lanka to really talk about how Aramex is looking at the industry and where Sri Lanka plays in that role.
Okay. So Mr. Rohan, how do you bring about the international businesses and local businesses through this conference? What do you all expect?
Yeah, so there are two things in this conference. Okay, we bring in the international element through, we have close to 30 international speakers coming in from top companies in the world who are into logistics and shipping. As Sanjay said, their own company head is coming to Sri Lanka. There are other major shipping lines coming in. There are a number of Indian players coming in, including the head of Indian Maritime University, who is our keynote speaker. And also we are bringing in business interest partners who are looking at Sri Lanka, because we are coming out of a bad economic situation, so country needs that push. So exposing Sri Lanka at this moment gives people to come and see actually what is going on in the ground. So there are already about 20-30 people from overseas going in to see the port itself. They have requested port visits. So we're trying to bring these elements, and of course the local companies participate in a very big way. So we've already gone beyond our target participation and overtaken the target participation because people have an interest. One thing I must tell you is that public must know that the logistics industry is valued at about $7 to $8 trillion globally. It's much bigger than many other industries. It's close to more than even the tourism industry in some cases if you take the domestic logistics. So Sri Lanka actually has a very small percentage of its GDP in logistics, less than 2%. So one of the things we are targeting with this time's launch of the conference is there's a new government. We want them to get the policies right, act in the interest of the country, and make at least logistics 5% of GDP. That's about $6 billion we are targeting from about $2 billion by 2030. So this message, to not only to talk about what's going on in the industry, what can be done in Sri Lanka, but also we are pushing for policy reforms and create a more conducive business environment in Sri Lanka.
So Mrs. Sanjay, I would like to ask you this question. So the Sea of Sri Lanka is very valuable, and this maritime industry is also crucial, and it is helping. So as Mr. Rohan said, Sri Lanka is recovering from economic crisis and many other crises. What are the pros and cons? How will this conference affect our economy?
In my perspective, I think it's going to be positive. The conference itself, this is the right time to have it. Like Rohan said, there's a new government in play, and it's in everybody's best interest in Sri Lanka and in the logistic camp, even in the region, to get things right here. Because the value that Sri Lanka brings to the international landscape when it comes to supply chain for many different industries, it's our oil in the ground. It's very simple. And I think Rohan was being very, how do I say this, minimalist in the way he's looking at the numbers. When he said 5 billion, I think we can reach much higher. If you take a country like Singapore, the GDP input from logistics is much higher than what Rohan said. And we can do it. Strategically, we are in the right place, and I think going forward with this type of event like the conference happening in Sri Lanka, we'll get a lot more positive input from other players in the market in the region as well, similar to what Aramex is doing, and hopefully a lot more people will invest and get the country moving forward and the region moving forward as well when it comes to logistics.
Mr. Rohan, are there any partnerships or agreements coming out of this conference?
There won't be any agreements, but there will be partnership building. Definitely, it's one of our efforts to bring in international people in. They have to see to believe it. Port of Colombo is actually one of the top ports in the world. It's number 22 in terms of volume of container transshipment. A lot of people don't know about it, so we have not exposed them. indeed the country needs partnerships, and that is one of the intentions also to bring through this. So there are people coming in to look at what can be done in Sri Lanka. There are Singaporeans coming, there are from Saudi Arabia, there is from Netherlands, various countries, people coming to see what are the opportunities here and what are we talking here as Colombo International Maritime Conference. So going back to Sanjay's comment about the GDP thing, yes, I am very cautious about it because we need to be steady when we go there, but as he said very correctly, if you look at the United Arab Emirates, it contributes nearly 20% to the GDP, and in Singapore it's around 12 to 15%. So we are trying to get in from 2% to a modest 5 to 6% in the next 5 years. That would be a great achievement for us, but we can do much more leaps and bounds if we get the things right.
And I think, Tinan, if I was just to add to what Rohan said as well, something to consider is if you take both Singapore and Dubai, which have been key players in that logistic, especially in the maritime side of things, both places are getting quite expensive, right? Singapore is also fast running out of space. So even Singaporean logistic companies are looking for another location to hub and spoke, right? And Sri Lanka is ideal for that. So we have to not only keep the fact that we are the 22nd largest port in the world, or the busiest port in the world. For the last year and a half, I believe we were the fastest growing port in the world as well, which are two key things. But we also got to capitalize on the position of the other countries in the region and try and take some initiative to get some of that business, which may be cost relatedly looking at other options. I know that other companies also look at places like Indonesia and Malaysia as hub and spoke models. DHL recently invested quite a big amount of money in Malaysia. So it's good to keep Sri Lanka at the top of people's minds, and events like the Colombo International Maritime and Logistic Conference are critical to that, that strategy.
So before we wind up, can you properly give a brief about it to our audience watching?
So in the sense that if you take the event itself, it's going to bring together a lot of people from the region. Like Rohan said, people are coming in from Singapore, people are coming in from Dubai, Malaysia. So it's key that all the stakeholders in Sri Lanka also make sure that they interact with all the parties at the event, try and understand what the requirements are in the region and in the globe. There's a lot of nearshoring happening when it comes to logistics. So that also plays an advantage to Sri Lanka. So building on that becomes the participants and the local stakeholders a part of the game. But I'm confident that the way the event is organized and the way the event has been set up over the 3 days and the different sessions, everyone's going to get a very good insight into the capabilities of the participants, and the attendees will get to ask questions as well. Aramex, myself, we are looking at really focusing on what are the possibilities when it comes to e-commerce, what is the possibilities when it comes to hub spoking in Sri Lanka. And we are also working concurrently with the government stakeholders to enable things like transshipping. So this event will showcase the benefit of that sort of facility being done in Sri Lanka.
All right. Well, that was our conversation with Rohan Masakoral, CEO of the Shippers Academy of Colombo, and Sanjay Samarasinghe, the country manager and director of Aramex Sri Lanka. Thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you, Bilan.
Now, the Colombo International Maritime and Logistic Conference will be held from the 27th to the 29th. Well, that's it. We'll be back once again with a News First exclusive.
News First exclusive.